Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Weirdos at Home.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing good.
How are you? Hi, how are you?
Hi.
Oh, we're gonna do
Sorry.
Lethal Weapon. We've never done that on the show before. That was awesome. That's made my night. I needed something today with everything going on. My name is Sam Slade. Still waiting for the companies to call me back. It's not looking good. This is the heart and soul of Weirdos at Home, Tara Brown, my wonderful, amazing partner and co-host. Tonight,
The most appropriate guest ever.
every once in a while, something happens in the news and we just trip over our own you-know-what to get a perfect guest for that day, whether it was Chris Clack with the tournament going on, or Baylor making a run, or tonight, we have, he's a senior advisor and a columnist for Texas Signal, a great publication. Everybody should check out Texas Signal. It's Joe Bowen is here to help us make sense of what's going on.
All right, so tell us everything that's going on today and make sense of it.
Andrew!
Well, it's a slow news today in Texas.
We can ease into
Yesterday you're in Texas.
Let me set it up a little bit.
You go.
Okay, so after a week of hell, Joe Biden wins a very well calculated. I mean, we were very big on detail to make sure we did it right. He wins by a substantial amount of votes. He becomes president. Before he gets sworn in, Trump tries to have a douchebag Confederate army raid the Capitol. They get pretty close. They were not the worst we've ever seen.
D+.
I think they're closer to that when they got. If it wasn't for Eugene Goodman, I don't know where we'd be. But okay, months go on. We almost freeze to death here in Texas. Greg Abbott does nothing about the freeze. Trump gets out, starts doing speeches again. Greg Abbott calls a special session to deal with critical race theory and important stuff like that, not the power grid, and then wants to enact some very serious voter suppression laws. Big restrictions. I don't think he's thinking them through, but in a response to that, Texas Democrats not having numbers to compete, the only thing they could do, which was go to DC and see if they could get some goddamn backup.
Yeah.
Am I off at all, Joe?
No, you pretty much got it. They
Okay.
are in DC trying to get the math right, and it's been a pretty wild couple
That's
of
where we'll
days.
start our saga.
Yeah. So yesterday, most of the Texas delegation to our state house decided to break quorum, like Sam said, which means to just not show up so that they can't conduct state business. Unfortunately, we had 4 Democrats in the Texas Senate still show up today and allow the Texas Senate to have a quorum, so they still conducted a little bit of business.
No.
It's all for show. It literally means nothing. That Senate bill can't be passed without the House here to do anything about it. So our state reps are in DC. They met with a handful of senators today, including Alex Padilla from California, Kirsten Gillibrand from New York, Chuck Schumer, the majority leader. And then they went in and met with Vice President Kamala Harris, I think 2 hours ago this evening.
Wow.
So it was a very busy day for them. And they are fighting as hard as they can to try to pass the John Lewis Act and the For the People Act to really shore up voting rights. And it's desperately needed because what we're seeing is a very well coordinated national effort from Republicans to suppress the votes of Black and brown people. And it's not something that Texans stand for. And I'm really proud of the folks who decided to go and take this fight to DC, where we really need to have federal action soon.
It's a really great group of lawmakers that went out there and that said enough with it. I mean, that's any other state would be lucky to have that. We only need a few more, but the 4 senators bummed me out quite a bit. But I have to say I'm awfully proud of the folks who went, because Joe, we've had a lot of people on social media ask us what is so restrictive, or where does the suppression argument come from? Now I can come up with some stuff, but I don't work for a great political publication like you do. Can you kind of tell the folks, what is it that caused, our Democrats in office to just say, we're out of here?
That's a great question. The final straw that broke the camel's back was this weekend. The Republicans had marathon committee hearings to try to rush these bills through. And it's the second time that they've tried to fast track these bills through the committee process. So they're skirting their own rules in the first place to try to pass these things. But in terms of what's in the bill that Democrats can't abide by, stricter voter ID, you're talking about making it illegal to do some of the things that made it easier to vote in the 2020 elections, like 24-hour voting, which is tremendously helpful for working people here in Houston, in Austin, Dallas. Restricting drop boxes for absentee ballots, making it harder to vote by mail. They're even adding a provision where if you're a senior citizen, you're voting by mail, it's something that you've done for the last 10 years. Now you have to write your social security number or your driver's license number on the inside flap of your envelope before you seal it. And if you don't do that, they invalidate your ballot. They also wanted to restrict early voting out.
Handing out that social security number.
Yeah, they sure do. They also want to restrict early voting hours. They wanted to prevent early voting from starting before 1 p.m. on Sundays. And one of the reasons why that's so important is because in Texas and across the country, African-American churches have spent generations doing Souls to the Polls programs, where you go to church on Sunday and then everybody goes and votes together. It is a beautiful and sacred tradition for those churches and for Black communities. And making it impossible to vote after church takes away the ability to do that.
Yeah, it's a major clip in the back. Use football term or whatever. I don't know. It's been a long time since I've been on the field. But I know when I was organizing in Cincinnati, Ohio in 2008, trying to get the guy with the funny name into the White House, the most fun you would have, the most like spiritual part of the entire 5 months we were up there knocking doors was the Sundays you would go and do GOTV at the Black churches at the end of the cycle. And Lord knows I stuck out like, a goober, right? I'm like Richie Cunningham, but it was that's where change gets made when people stand up and vote for the issues that are going to impact their life and their quality of life. And it's just, that's so, Joe, it's so blatantly, transparently, just a kick in, just a sucker punch to shut it down after 1 p.m. They know what they're doing.
Yeah. They also want to ban drive-through voting, which a lot of folks used during the pandemic to protect themselves and their families from getting coronavirus. And a lot of the provisions that they're putting into these bills specifically target counties that have more than 1 million residents. There's only a handful of those counties in Texas, and they're the most diverse counties that we have. They're very transparently targeting populous areas that have very large rates of voters of color. It is a very transparent scheme to disenfranchise voters. And when you look at the national context for what's happening, a similar bill passed in Georgia, and a woman from the Heritage Foundation literally went to a big conference and took credit for passing that bill in Georgia and said that they gave the exact same language to Briscoe Cain to use here in Texas.
Yeah, they created a how-to manual.
It'd be one thing, Joe, and I know some of this is going to come off as inside baseball. We've got a lot of people who just watch to be silly and do comedy stuff, but this is serious stuff going on here in Texas. This is way worse than anything Joe Rogan and the alt-right comics are doing, I can promise you. That's a joke. I'm just trying to lighten the mood a little, but it's tough with everything going on. They're blatantly targeting, but they're not even leading the pack when it comes to this kind of stuff. They're taking, just like the bathroom bill when it came to transgender bathrooms. They just literally said, hey, North Carolina, do you mind if we use your notes? Yeah. I mean, they're lazy. Abbott's lazy. He's not even attempting to put up a case for it. He's not attempting to do anything. His special session agenda items, and I said this to you to the point you asked me to start looking for a new apartment, was that the special session agenda items were all things Trump rattled off at his rally. Yeah. Just from being Trump doing his stand-up. It's not even, if you're paying the least bit of attention, Greg Abbott, he's a crony. There's no other way to say it.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. We don't have leadership in Texas right now. We have a governor who is very committed to putting together a campaign for 2024 so he can drop out before the Iowa caucus. I'm glad he's trying to match Rick Perry's performance in that respect, but Greg Abbott needs to focus more on what people actually need rather than trying to drop as much red meat as he possibly can for Trump voters.
Joe, you're an expert, and Tara works in a nonprofit who deals with the Texas legislature quite a bit. I don't like saying the L word. I'm an Obama Democrat. But when I think of, correct me if I'm wrong, but they've done nothing to fix the power grid. Abbott didn't use this special session.
I heard, yeah.
I mean, you guys catch me up. I'm just a dig joke comic. Catch me up here.
Yeah, you've missed nothing. We literally sat in the frigid cold for several days in February. 700 people across the state died. And, I grew up in the Midwest, so I had friends who were texting me like, what's going on? This doesn't look that bad to
what
us.
the hell, man, right?
Yeah, but homes in Texas aren't built to sustain that type of weather. And obviously our electrical grid was not either. And this is a systemic problem that dates back to 2011 when ice storms hit Dallas and they had bad power outages and people died.
Yeah.
It's been 10 years. They did nothing to winterize the grid to make sure that it would be resilient against bad weather, against terrorist attacks, against cyber hacking. They've done nothing. And Texas is the only state that relies on its own grid because, of course. And a lot of people didn't know that until the lights went out. And we were sitting in the cold like, why is this happening? Why is no one doing anything? And I was in Austin when that all happened, and you'd read the horror stories that people were like walking to 7-Eleven and finding bodies on the street. Had horrible, terrifying things. And they had an entire special session that did not address this. He did not put it on the call for the special session. And he's saying that everything that should have been done was done. And it just could not be more untrue. We literally had power outages across the state a week ago. It's summertime.
It's really, really, really absurdly offensive. And, we went not only days here in Austin without power due to that storm, but also without running water because the community we're in North Austin wasn't able to handle the freeze and the pipes breaking and it depends on everybody doing the right thing. And we seem to have an issue with that in Austin sometimes. But I just got to think after 2 weeks or 3 weeks of people having to find their own water or really go into survival mode, it will dawn on us come November 2020, maybe we ought to make a change.
Us by the voters, do you think?
Anyone who dealt with that situation.
Yeah.
Anyone in Texas who had to go through that
for sure.
with no answers. Because remember how many times did just you and I, who were fine, with her background and her genes and my stubbornness, we were going to get through it. It was going to be ugly, a lot of roast jokes, but a lot of people unfortunately had it really, really tragic time.
Okay. Yeah. And it really highlighted the issues that we have across Texas and in a city like Austin, especially with the fact that depending on your zip code, you might be in a very fortunate situation. Where I was living at the time, I happened to be very close to the Texas gas service and a DPS outpost was on the other side of my house. So we only lost power for 1 day. The folks who were literally across the street from me did not have power for the duration. And they were relying on melting snow to flush their toilets in Texas. It's absolutely wild that ever happened.
That's fun, wasn't it? Wasn't that fun? Huh? Did you ever was that fun? Time. That was a good time.
One thing I think we really have to address, and I'm down to make some jokes here too, but Bloomberg News recently reported that Texas petroleum producers reaped an $11 billion windfall from the power outage because it sent energy prices surging. Yeah. Everybody knew that was coming. Folks had said, hey, the grid's going to have some issues next week when the winter weather comes in. The energy create generators knew that they were going to make a lot of money. And somehow magically, no one did anything to prepare and no one did anything in the immediate aftermath to fix the issue. Nor at any point did Greg Abbott try to cap those gas prices.
You're right, Joe, and Tara too for not jumping in on that. It's an inappropriate issue to make jokes about at this point. On my part, it's how I deal with extremely sad stuff that didn't need to happen. But we lost lives due to an ignored warning, a decade-long issue sitting on the back burner. Then you call a special session, and I'm sure the first time a lot of Texans see that headline go, well, I'm sure it's for the power grid.
Yeah.
I'm sure we're having a special session, and it ends up being about, what is it, grown men playing in little girl sports, and then also on the back burner, we're going to completely hack up your voting rights. We have ignored so many important issues, and I don't know if it's apathy. I don't know if life is good enough to just get by.
Well, I think it's what Joe was talking about. If Abbott's really, if his mind is on the prize of gearing up for this campaign, then if Trump doesn't care about the grid, he's not going to care about it either. Like he's, I think you said putting out red meat, which is a very good analogy. Trump doesn't give a fuck that Texas almost froze. So Greg Abbott's not going to put forth any effort. Because this is all of this special session seems to be is just waving a flag,
campaign ad,
going,
a
look
campaign
over
ad.
here, look over here, look over here, look what I'm doing.
Joe,
And by the way, this special session started July 8th, same day CPAC started. So that might have been a convenient
In
coincidence.
Dallas,
oh God,
3.5 hours away.
I just, so many times over the last 6 months with Joe Biden, I've got those fun goosebumps, like on the 4th of July when he's double fisting ice cream.
Yeah.
But just now, when Joe said that gave me like Skeletor's on his way. Goosebumps. That's gross.
Blatant and obvious and right, because I think it's right in front of your face and you just didn't realize it, and then now you just feel gross.
So, Joe, for all intents and purposes, is this Abbott's last legislative session before he wants to play running for president?
No, unfortunately, we're also going to have a second special session, no matter what, on redistricting in September or October. And with the Democrats breaking quorum, Abbott can keep calling special sessions until they come back, and he can put anything that he wants to on the call. So this could be a never-ending story of Greg Abbott trying to suppress the vote for months and months, or he'll realize it's not going to work and he'll stop. Or what actually needs to happen, we need to set aside the filibuster temporarily and pass these bills so that we can actually make sure that the rights of every American are protected so that they can vote.
So basically, I think, and Tara and I were talking about this earlier when the redistricting came up, this could get a lot uglier between Abbott and our state Democrats before this gets any better here. Aside from all of the Trump checklist issues, we still have redistricting on the line, and Texas Republicans are notorious for cutting the pie exactly the way, Meemaw wants it to be cut. And this, unfortunately, the Meemaw is Abbott and Donald Trump. So, Joe, what happens if we don't? I mean, how long can they afford to not come back, I guess is what I'm asking.
Well, you just asked what might end up being the couple $1 million question in this whole thing. Texas legislators don't get paid a lot of money for what they do for the state, and they also can't raise money during the regular legislative session. So these folks don't have campaign resources that they can really rely on. The Texas Democratic Party worked really hard to raise some resources to help cover some of these expenses, but it's a really open question how long this is going to last. For some of the folks, I mean, we're fortunate enough to know some of these state representatives. We're talking about folks on the Democratic side who do not live very high on the hog. We're not talking about very successful trial attorneys. We're talking about folks who are school teachers. We're talking about folks like Ramon Romero, who's from DFW, who owns a construction business. He's worked in construction his entire life. He's a working guy. For them to make this step and take off and not be with their families, not be with their real jobs where they should be making money right now, and to not be at the Capitol working on behalf of Texans is going to cause some serious harm to these folks. But they measured that against the damage that this bill is going to do in their communities and for the people that they care about. And, I was texting with John Busey yesterday, and when you think about the younger state representatives who have young children, folks like Gina Hinojosa, who's also from Austin, who has a couple of kids, you're thinking about the world your children are going to vote in, especially for Gina, because her kids are going to turn 18 during this next cycle of redistricting, I think. And what that looks like means something very different. And I think that what they're doing right now is the right thing for our state and for their families. So I hope that whatever needs to happen for them to have the resources they need to take this as long as they need to, we'll be able to put together for them.
I mean, I know we've got, at least in our area of Austin, we're fortunate to have such a great group of representatives. Gina, John Busey, who I work for, and Cheryl Cole, who I work for, and then Tellerico, James Tellerico, from just helping him with his math homework back in the day.
We went to the same high school.
But my point is these aren't.
James was the school teacher I was referring to.
Right. Yeah. These aren't. This isn't the high on the hog Lindsey Graham, throwing down a $500 lunch type of public servants.
The better example, not to interrupt you, is Gary Gates, who's a state representative in Fort Bend County, and he's a slumlord.
Oh my God.
He's been trying to evict people during the coronavirus pandemic. He flew on a private jet to Florida during that deep freeze when people were dying in his county.
I mean, just for Abbott, I guess it makes it so shocking to folks outside of Texas, maybe when Abbott says he's going to have our Democrats arrested when what outlet? Some outlet we saw the headline was, but has no jurisdiction within Washington D.C.
And it was
he doesn't.
Capitol Police had to release a statement saying,
like, don't worry about it.
But think about how hideous what he actually said was. He didn't just say he was going to have them arrested. He said he was going to have them bound in the House chamber. He said he was going to chain them to their desks.
That's stuff that we've worked really hard to get away from. That's beyond a lot of stuff that George Wallace said. And I don't know, when you think about our state representatives of color, our state representatives who are women.
Mm-hmm.
It's not funny, and I don't know if national media helps you. I mean, jump in here. You're both, it turns out.
Yeah.
I'm just another throwaway ginger white guy. Help me out here.
Well, I think that you have a good head on your shoulders and you think about that kind of stuff. He does not have that. He does not think that this is, like you said, the nuances of what about people of color? What about women? How does that statement come across to them? Like, that's not even registering on his.
Well, you don't think that registers on Abbott's part?
Not him, not anybody immediately surrounding him, I don't think.
Joe, is Abbott just strictly playing to the national Trumper donors at this point? It's what it feels like.
I mean, when you look at a sitting governor who raises $18 million in the last 10 days of June, you're definitely looking at someone who's building a war chest, and he's sitting on $55 million because he wants to attempt to just roll in this gubernatorial election in 2022 and then be able to say, look how big I won my last race. I should be president. It's the same theory Rick Perry had. And moreover, it's the same theory Hillary Clinton had when she last ran for U.S. Senate in 2006.
I mean, and we know that Hillary's presidential campaigns and Rick Perry's presidential campaigns worked out historically well. So we know that Abbott definitely has a shot here. There's no way. Look, even our TV quit when I said that. Our monitor was like, I'm out, man.
Yeah, man. I mean, listen, I'm not a Clinton apologist. I was an Obama person in 2008, but the woman did get more votes in the Democratic primary than anyone in American history.
No. You're absolutely right. I wasn't taking that shot at her whatsoever. I was just.
You were right that the 2008 campaign was not well run by any stretch of the imagination. But what Abbott is interested in is not only drawing national interest and getting himself on Fox News as much as possible. I mean, that's the only reason he's building this sham of a border wall. It's also addressing the Trump base here in Texas, because what we see in Texas politics is candidates who try to gravitate as far as they can to the right to appeal to the most frequent Republican primary voters, who are the most conservative Republican primary voters.
Yeah.
So what Abbott's really doing is trying to shore himself up in a Republican primary where he's in the middle lane with two flavors of crazy on either side of him. You have Don Huffines from DFW, who is bonkers. And then you have Alan West, the recently resigned Texas GOP chairman. And as I love to refer to him, because he's the original Florida man running in this primary. And it's really wild. On behalf of our readers at Texas Signal, I suffered through all 7 minutes of Alan West's announcement video. It was so much worse than I ever could have imagined, because it's just a very boring history of all these people who came from Tennessee and Georgia to fight in the Texas Revolution. And then you look up what happened to some of these people, the most famous being Davy Crockett. They may all go to hell and I'll go to Texas, where he was killed by Santa Anna's army in the Battle of the Alamo. So maybe not the best example.
Well, and that kind of cuts into, the new book, Jay Stanford's new book,
Forget the
Alamo, which is basically summing up the irony of all this going on now in real time. I know I sent Joe a message last night while we were hanging out, and I'm sure he got it and was like, what the fuck does this mean? But this governor's race is playing out like Caddyshack, and I think the way I laid it out was Huffines is Judge Spales.
You sent him this? I thought this was just a conversation.
He did send me that, and I couldn't tell if he was talking about the Republican primary or the still putative Democratic primary, but
hear me out.
Definitely very Caddyshack on the Republicans.
Hear me out. Huffines is Judge Spales.
Mm-hmm.
Alan West is the gopher.
Yeah.
Spalding is Greg Abbott. Ty Webb is Beto. Carl Spackler is Julian Castro.
Yeah, that's what we found.
I think that's how far I got. And I know.
I'm so sorry, everybody. I thought this was like a conversation him and I just had in the living room.
To the best of my knowledge, Julian's not in this governor's race.
You think he's going to get in?
No, I don't. He just took a job with NBC News and MSNBC as a contributor. Julian, if you hear this, I love you. I think you're fantastic. I'm tired of waiting you to run for high office, sir. Sam, I know you're an alum of his presidential campaign, and when we look back on the 2020 race, we're going to really wonder how Julian Castro didn't do better. He was a very genuinely progressive candidate with a very interesting perspective and a lot to say. I have a frustration with a lot of folks in Texas politics where they all seem to be thinking roughly 4 years ahead. And I think if right now, just to be candid, some folks posted photos of Julian heading into the Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee for a meeting last week that I saw on social media. If you're sitting anywhere in Texas or anywhere in this country right now thinking about how you can beat Ted Cruz in 3 years and not figuring out how to beat the vote suppressor in chief that Greg Abbott wants to be right now, I'm not interested in voting for you in 2024. That's as true of Julian potentially as it is of anybody else. I think that had Julian run in 2018, I genuinely believe Beto and Julian would have both won, and he would be the governor of Texas.
With the turnout of both of them, just with everybody. I mean, just the folks at the state level who got elected. We're not going to say any names on the Democratic side, but people who you didn't think you could maybe ever win these seats who won because Beto was running that year.
Yeah. We had some folks who it was very surprising won. And then we also had some folks who are just incredibly talented who have done amazing work who got elected in that cycle as well. Like my former boss, the Harris County Judge Lena Hidalgo. She's done amazing work. But it is true that Beto really brought a lot to the table, but where we didn't have a lot going on in 2018 was in that governor's race. If you look at the numbers, the drop off in votes from Beto down to Lupe Valdez, who, by the way, is a trailblazer, a wonderful person, really great woman, was a very good sheriff in Dallas County, not a great candidate for governor. I think if Julian's in that race, he would have been able to sustain the Beto performance. And I think he also would have been helpful drawing more turnout in parts of the state where we didn't do particularly well.
I think you're absolutely right. And you said it in a much more diplomatic way than I would have said it. And I think you know that because you've corrected me a few times on statements I've put out on social media.
There's only one that I remember. I usually let people live how they want to live.
No, there's only one, but that one meant so many, Joe.
Yeah, and I not to have too much of an inside conversation with you, we all have moments where stuff bubbles to the surface a little bit. So those things happen.
I mean, we're Texas Democrats after all. And I don't know if anybody, it's one of those frustrating situations where you go, has anyone been paying attention? We should be furious. We should be furious with the way some of these campaigns or these decisions have been made, because I think at times we've put up for every candidate that there's no reason we shouldn't get behind this person. We put up some candidates where you can honestly say, yeah, I don't know how we're going to make this happen.
Absolutely.
Well, I didn't mean to bring the whole room down. I apologize, guys. When taken out of everybody's head.
I think that Julian and Joaquin are just such talented people, and they're also everyone I know who has worked with them, worked for them, and has gotten to know them really talks about what amazing people they are, and they have such great talent. One of them needs to step up to the plate and run for governor. Same thing goes for Beto. I said this in a column yesterday. If you want to be about it, be about it. And I think it's great that we can say we're going to focus on this fight for voting rights. The fight for voting rights doesn't end at the end of this special session. Greg Abbott's not going to stop. The Republicans will not stop. We need someone to stand up and lead this party and say, you can try all you want, but I will be in your face. I will hold you accountable. You will not get away with doing these things in the middle of the night that you Republicans think you can get away with. And in the absence of having that person, these state reps are doing everything they can to hold the line. We need more firepower.
These are state reps who are making $7,200 a year. They're only really getting to do anything every other year for 5 months. It's something that you have brought to my attention in the last couple of months with everything going on here. Who the hell is running? Who are we getting behind? You've gotten frustrated about it, where you're like, somebody Somebody say something.
Yeah, it's time. Someone needs to start getting some sort of ball rolling. Because I know social media has a lot of bringing people together, that kind of power. And what I'm seeing overwhelmingly is people are just sitting around waiting for Beto. And I mean, if he's choosing not to, that's fine.
We need to know, though.
But we need to know, because it would be very, very, very unfortunate if Texas Democrats are now going to be behind the curve once we decide to finally get started and get behind somebody.
A frustrating but also very great thing about Beto is that he is a very sincere person, and not just by the standards that you apply to most politicians. When he says he hasn't thought about it, I really genuinely believe that he hasn't thought about it. I think he's focused on what he's focused on. So I think it's okay to a certain extent to take some time and make up your mind. It's obviously a huge decision. I just think that at a certain point, if we're really willing to do everything to stop these folks, we need some folks to step up and do everything to stop these folks. And that's just my perspective.
Right. We can't keep coasting along on Matthew McConaughey in Dallas Morning News polls.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I mean, again.
Also, I mean, we saw plenty of polls that had Joe Biden potentially winning Texas or being within a point. We've seen some interesting polling over the last 5 years in this business.
That's true, Joe. You're exactly right. We saw a few in 2016 that definitely did not go the way we wanted them to.
Oh, yeah. Did they not?
But as far as Joe Biden goes, to get back to someone hopefully more positive, what do you think about how he's doing? We're 6 months in. Here we are.
I think when you think about how poorly managed the coronavirus pandemic was under Donald Trump, the moment I knew Joe Biden was doing a very good job as president was when he got 100 million shots in arms in less than 100 days in office. We have a lot we still need to do on vaccination, but the program has done very well. Access to the vaccine has gotten better. When you think about where he's placing his priorities, he's focused on making sure we have a strong economy, that we rebuild the infrastructure of this country. And I'm sure we have a lot of folks from Texas who are going to listen to this. We all hit potholes every goddamn day in the state. We need infrastructure. We had a huge problem with our grid. Joe Biden's infrastructure plan invests billions of dollars in modernizing the grid. That money's going to come here to Texas. It's just, we need people to step up and act on these things, and he is leading on the things that we really need to address urgently for the American people. I do wish that he would forget a little bit of the U.S. senator that runs deep in his blood. He served in the Senate for
long time,
30-something years. He presided over it as vice president. The traditions of the Senate should not be sacrosanct when we compare them to the voting rights of American citizens. And I think that the sham of letting less than a majority of U.S. senators say, "Now we're not going to debate voting rights," that should not happen. Right. But on the whole, I think he's doing great. I was also stoked to see him rocking a couple cones on the 4th of July. That man loves ice cream.
It was an emotional. I didn't realize I was going to get so emotional seeing him double coning on his patio, and then when America the Beautiful came on, he just starts fist pumping like, yeah.
Which is also great. It's just really nice for me to know that we have a good person as president of the United States. He's always been a really devoted family man. He's always been a very warm-hearted Catholic, which I relate to because I was raised in a family very similar to that. And to just know that we have someone who, I think the most remarkable thing about President Biden is that he has known such pain in his life, and a lot of people retreat from that. And his entire life, he has always shared his pain with people and tapped into the things that broke their hearts too. And I can't think of a more important time to have a president that's this resilient, who's just that ready to get back off the mat. Because he's been through so many things that.
Look, we got him right here, Joe. I don't know if you see him. He's literally right.
Yeah, there he is.
There he is.
If I'm not mistaken, that's the day Obama announced him as running mate on the steps of the State House in Springfield, Illinois, 2008.
I mean, my God, Joe Bowen from downtown, bang! I'll say this. My favorite part about that afternoon is Joe saying, "Ladies and gentlemen, Barack America."
It was an exciting day.
He was
I
excited.
was saying I was actually in Grant Park on election night in 2008.
Wow.
Really?
I was going to school in Chicago at the time and managed to get tickets. And me and a couple
Wait,
friends.
hang on. So when did you leave Chicago? We found out we overlapped at the Texas Democratic Party or missed each other. When did you leave Chicago?
I was in Chicago from September 2008 to May 2009, and I was like,
Again,
shit, we took back the Senate. We're going to roll. This is going to be great. And then the opposition to the Affordable Care Act scared the hell out of me. And I was like, I'm going to go home and get into politics.
Again, I missed you in Chicago by 2 months. I was there in August.
Oh, nice. I love Chicago. It's the first city I've ever fallen in love with. It's just if you're from the Midwest, if you can't love Chicago, move somewhere else, is what I would say.
Yeah.
Get out of the Midwest because you're not going to find much better there.
Well, I've never been. I'm going though. Next month,
Good.
at the end of the month, I'm going to be going for the first time with him. So he'll be showing me everything that I need to see, know, hear, taste, feel, touch, all of it. So I'm very.
I could probably guess a few places you're going to end up. I could tell from the hat that you'll probably make your way to Wrigley at some point.
Well, originally, yeah.
It's funny that you say that.
We got the business out of the way.
The original plan was myself, and I had made these ticket plans before him and I even met.
Years.
Before. But friends of ours we were all going to go to see Lady Gaga perform. She was going to do a concert in Wrigley Field. So that was the big reason to go. And then when the pandemic hit, she postponed it a year. And I was like, well, now you're in my life. Come to Chicago with us.
Yeah.
Well, no, I was going to go first go around too.
Then she postponed it again just a few months ago and never gave a rescheduled date. But I mean, we'd already bought ticket, hotel, all of it. So I just was like, we deserve it. We deserve some sort of fun trip after
you've never been
being cooped up for 18 months together. So it's going to be a good time. I'm really excited.
Chicago in the summer is gorgeous. Great time to be there.
Oh, it's the best. It's the best. We were asking Joe, another Joe Mayo, also known as Pat Finn from Seinfeld. He was in Chicago for a while doing improv and comedy and stuff before he became a Jerry Seinfeld apartment no name. But Italian beef, do you go full dip or half dip?
Yeah, if you full dip, everything worth doing is worth doing big.
So when he first showed me that this was a thing, I was like, oh my God, I can't wait to get a full dip Italian beef sandwich. I'm so excited. And he was like, no, tourists, you're doing it wrong. Like, you're supposed to half dip so you can have a dry side to hold on to. 2 different textures. He sold it. And I was like, okay, well, maybe I'll do a half dip.
He has a great point. Yeah,
but then
everyone's different. I think you lean into the tourist thing though. If it's the first time you've ever been there, you're not going to sound like you're from Chicago, right? Like, just do what you want to do because it's the most tourist-friendly city I've ever been to. It's one of the only cities I think you could ask anyone on the street, hey, how do I get to the Shedd Aquarium? And they might be very short and clipped with you, but they will point you in the right direction and tell you how to get there.
They might offer you a ride, but you got to be quick, get into the car. Don't make them feel stupid about it.
Yeah.
I will say I haven't visited that area of the country very often. The only other time I've been even anywhere near up there was when I went to Minneapolis, and I had never heard the phrase Minnesota nice, and everyone was truly Minnesota nice. Like,
Midwest nice. It's
so
a thing.
Joe, where in the Midwest are you from?
To their city, and what are you doing? What are you gonna do? What do you want to do?
Can we show you?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you came down here for the festival, eh? I grew up in Michigan, a town called Cadillac, Michigan. I worked in Wisconsin for a few weeks at one point on the Scott Walker recall. And I also just earlier this year took a very long road trip through the Northwest and then over to Ohio. And I just drove through Minnesota.
Wow.
Yeah.
That sounds really gorgeous. That sounds like a much, with no offense there, brother, but more pretty than, Chicago with the Wiener Circle at 3 a.m. with dudes puking all over the place.
Yes, I want to live. So
Don't drink any Mallard. You'll be okay.
Whatever Chicago-wise, because we ask all of our guests this once we find out they've been
they've heard of Chicago.
They've heard of this little totaling town, as one Italian used to say. What are some spots that are still around? Obviously Wrigley, but what's again? If it's up to Joe Bowen planning the itinerary, what's an experience you need to have when you're in Chicago as a Midwest guy yourself?
I don't know if it's still open. I'm pretty sure it is. Buddy Guy had a bar on Wabash. Buddy Guy's Legends. And I think there was one month a year, it was like April or something. Buddy would play a set every night. And if you're ever there to see a musician as good as Buddy Guy, it's always worth checking out. But I loved the character of that bar. It's just like a little dive jazz club. And it's a block up from Grant Park.
Right.
Lake Michigan. It's
like
a really cool location.
Like away. Yeah, I know.
It faces the back of the Chicago Hilton on State Street. Yeah. So.
Well, I definitely want to stop by. I love Buddy Guy. I checked him out in Austin.
You saw
here
Buddy
at Anthems. Yeah, he's love his fashion too. Loves polka dots.
He's a big polka dot guy. That's right. Yeah.
And then my favorite places to see live music were Shuba's, which is one of the great venues of the Midwest.
I've done a lot of stand-up at Shuba's and improv.
Yeah. And then there's a spot, I think it was called Subterranean.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had friends who played some shows at Subterranean, and I really loved it because it has a second floor, but there's a cutout in it. So as you're standing on the second floor at the bar, you're looking down at the main floor in the stage. It's a really cool bar.
So I don't think it's there anymore.
Probably not. I haven't been back to Chicago in a little while. I'm sure Clark's is still there. And that's
man.
Everybody's got to go to Clark's for breakfast at some point.
That's right. Clark's, and I want to take you to a place called Fish Bar. It's like what the fancy steakhouse does with all of the seafood left over. But it's great. What else were we talking about doing? Oh, I got to take her to my old stopping grounds over at Second City and Laugh Factory.
Oh yeah, you have to go to those places.
We're gonna try. We're actually randomly we realized that this was the same weekend, but we'll be in town for the White Sox Cubs games that are going on.
Oh, great.
We're gonna try to go to a game. I think.
Is that at Wrigley or?
It's all South Side this year. Yeah.
It was supposed to be gone.
I like that ballpark. I like the White Sox a lot. They're the South Side work ethic of the team I find very charming. It's very similar to like the Lakers Clippers vibe.
Oh, okay.
I see the Fletch jersey back there. I'm ready for the John.
I love that. It's just funny. We had somebody on. Oh, Mike McRae was like, "Sorry, I wasn't ready to go on a sports show." We're like, "It's just Fletch. It's not really sports. It's fine."
Like, it was that Chevy Chase movie, dude.
I know he's the greatest Laker ever. I say that. Well, it's about to be a John Hamm movie. Have you heard about that?
Yeah, that's what I just said. I'm excited for the John Hamm version. They brought John Slattery in for a little Mad Men reunion.
He's going to be the boss. I love that he's the editor. That's.
I'm a big sucker for fan service. That's why I'm really loving what Disney Plus and Avengers are doing now. Just give me what I want.
Yeah, but they tease you.
Yeah, I have a friend who's like a very uptight Star Wars person, and when they announced that they were going to have all of these Disney Plus shows, he was like, "This isn't canon, bro." And then he watched the first episode of The Mandalorian and called me
That's what we call
on the verge of tears.
Oh my!
And he was like, "This is everything that I wanted a Star Wars television show to be." And I was like, "Word." And I watched the first season because I had to see Werner Herzog acting a fool. I don't really know that much about Star Wars, but I was like, I'll watch him be a bad guy every day.
I know. And I was like, we get Carl Weathers back? I haven't seen him since Arrested Development. I mean,
bring on Carl.
All right. I have to ask you two, since I have you two on the same show. Under Disney's watch, Marvel property or Star Wars property that you're looking the most forward to, more stoked about?
Okay, Star Wars property.
Keep it on the Disney lot.
I'm really looking forward to the Boba Fett
series
and the Ewan McGregor Obi-Wan.
Ooh.
Yeah, I just watched Ewan McGregor in Halston, and I was like, oh yes, he is an amazing actor, and I am.
Ewan McGregor slaps. That dude can act. If you've never seen Beginners, it's like my favorite movie.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yes. And for him to just be like coming back in my living room on a weekly basis, I'm like, yes. And Avengers. I really am, or Marvel, I'm really looking forward to what's happening with this third Spider-Man movie.
What do you mean?
Like the multiverse, and we're merging it in
You're-
with WandaVision and.
But you're hoping former Spider-Man.
Well, we already know. Sorry, spoilers. We already know that we're getting Toby back. We're getting Andrew Garfield
Second
back.
guy.
We're getting a lot of villains back.
Alfred Molina, right?
Yeah. So I'm just really excited.
You want just Spider-Man party?
It's exactly what it is. Spider-Man party is what I'm going to be calling it from now on. What about you, Joe?
I think they're going to make a couple more Deadpools, and I've enjoyed how funny those movies have been. But I would also be interested in seeing the Obi-Wan miniseries because I think they're also bringing back the woefully underrated Hayden Christensen.
They are.
They
Shattered Glass, another great movie.
You were the chosen one.
He hadn't seen the prequels in a very, very long time, and maybe there were a couple that you hadn't. And so we rewatched one of them the other day. It was an Attack of the Clones.
It's the middle one.
Yeah, and as weak as it was, I did realize, I was like, man, Hayden Christensen got a shaft on this. Yeah. He's trying. He's really trying, and it was something that people were just so critical of that whole project from the start, and having to work directly under George Lucas, who's just so crazy and out of touch about.
Yeah, that's the thing I think we learned in the prequels is like, there's a reason you didn't direct this shit in the first place. Like, we get another dude in here to direct this thing because you're just it's way too opulent. You're overdoing it.
I just feel for him because I know that day that they told him, like, hey, you remember at the end of the original when they had the Darth Vader hologram? Like, that's going to be you. We're going to do that. I'm sure in his naive little heart, he's like, man, I really did something here. I made a difference. And for
they didn't just forget me. Like, this might be okay.
Yeah. Poor guy.
Yeah. He made a lot of money off those movies, so I think he's fine. I don't really care for George Lucas though, because he's such a not emotional guy. Someone asked him why he didn't do more to emotionally involve his audience in the Star Wars movies, and he was like, "Oh, that's the easiest thing to do in cinema. You just strangle a kitten."
What? What does that have to do with anything?
He's like, I don't do emotion.
I think you've had too many Coke Zeros, George. Set it down.
Time to take a
Simmer
break.
down, George. Very not Yoda of you, man.
Was it you that was saying in the shirt that you wanted a Donald Glover Lando movie or series or something? Just do anything.
Awesome. Yeah. I really liked him cast as that character. And Lando is probably one of my favorite characters in the whole universe. So much so I named my dog Lando. He's laying here, right here. And so when they were announcing this Han Solo movie, and then I heard that we were going to get a Lando kind of prequel character, I was just like,
I don't know why
he was great in it.
Do more of that. I don't know why they don't want
to. I think they're supposed to do more Lando. I thought he was going to do a series.
Have you been? I got to ask you this to nerd out. We got a few more minutes. You've been watching this Loki program?
No, I haven't, but I read a review that mostly focused on Owen Wilson's performance, and it made me really want to watch it.
Come on.
He's great in it. Very weird chemistry at first between the two of them, but then it just settles in, and I don't even know where to start. There's so much timeline and character development and flash forwards and flashbacks, and it's just so pleasing to all your senses almost. You're watching
just a lot of everything.
Yeah.
But I feel like Owen Wilson's the perfect guy for a time travel movie, to be the person who has traveled through time, because he has this just melancholiness to him. Yeah, it's he could look at you and have this expression that would make you want to cry, and you're like, what are you seeing right now?
He really is. And he makes fun of me sometimes about my Wes Anderson obsession and all the movies that I love from here. And Owen Wilson.
Did you read about the French Dispatch?
Huh?
The new Wes Anderson film premiered at Cannes yesterday. Got a 9-minute standing ovation.
The new one?
French Dispatch, which Owen Wilson is in.
Gosh.
That's the most Wes Anderson title I've ever Wes Anderson
And
It's the most Wes Anderson sounding idea ever. It's a newspaper in France.
When I show you the preview, you're gonna be like, "Oh, okay."
Okay, so guys, tell me, what's the movie about this time? Boy with the
basic
camera.
crux of it is it's like a bunch of French journalists who write a section of a newspaper in Kansas.
Yeah.
And Bill Murray plays the editor, and it's like a bunch of vignettes and different things that they're working on, and it intercuts the stories that they're writing and like little comedic interludes. Should be pretty wild. I think it's going to be.
Go ahead. I'm so sorry.
I just think it's going to be good. I think it'll be similar to the Grand Budapest Hotel.
Which I loved, and a lot of people I know thought it wasn't that great. And I was like, what are y'all talking about? I mean, Anderson does wonders with an ensemble cast, and putting it in a setting of like a newsroom or like a publication office. Like, there's just so many places you can go with that. I think it's a period piece too, right?
Yeah. He's never made a bad movie, but the movies that he's made that are excellent are so good that it sets this crazy standard for him to have to live up to. Like,
that's
I just love that Owen Wilson shows up, understands the assignment.
Bill Murray too now.
He plays these characters who come off like you're supposed to not like them. They're supposed to be
snarky,
and snarky, but you just end up feeling sympathy and love towards them. And that's just Owen. And in Loki, you do feel that way because he represents the TVA, which is supposed to be this big corporation that Loki's trying to take down. But then through this character development, you realize like this is an actual person that I'm rooting for.
He's just doing his job. I just work here.
I just work here. Okay,
the best Bill Murray Wes Anderson story though is that when they were making the Royal Tenenbaums, which is one of Gene Hackman's last films, Gene Hackman was a massive prick every day, and he made Wes Anderson's life a living hell and just bullied him. And someone told Bill Murray one day, Hackman's being a real asshole. So Bill Murray showed up every day for the rest of the shoot, even when he wasn't scheduled, just to sit there and shit talk Gene Hackman if he started to get out.
You love that. You love it. I've never heard that. That is amazing. I love
Bill Murray is the original real
Bill Murray was being a prick on the set. Like, oh. But to hear that.
Which that did happen a couple times in the 80s.
Well, it happened on it broke him and Harold Ramis up on Groundhog Day, and then they didn't talk again until Harold Ramis on his deathbed. And I think that
but you know,
Bankman and Ghostbusters.
It's good that they talked.
It is good. I mean, that's doing the right thing by a friend and by family. Hey, it's fucking Egon, for Christ's sake.
Did you know Bill Murray directed a movie?
Which one?
It's a heist film called Quick Change.
Yes, and Randy Quaid is Randy Quaid, Gina Davis, Bill Murray. Bill Murray's a clown. Correct me if I'm wrong. He's a clown, party clown.
I'm remembering this now.
That robs banks. I didn't realize. I loved it as a kid because it's Bankman.
Bill Murray robbing banks dressed as a clown. There's nothing you can't love about that as a kid.
Right. And you're coming up with Ghostbusters and Groundhog Day, and I didn't realize he directed it. I thought
he co-directed it. It's the only directing credit that he's ever had.
Shit.
I got to the end of it and saw his name, and I was like, "Fucking Bill Murray directed this? It's nuts."
Thank you for your service, John Winger. Well, you know that I'm standing on the ledge for the Ghostbuster movie.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, me too. If you didn't grow up on the Ghostbusters, if you're my age, I don't know what you grew up on.
Okay, can we run? And please help me. I lose steam at this part of the show. What our theory is about the Ghostbusters movie. We had it all concocted, but I'll get all nervous.
You're gonna have to help me because I don't remember. It was so just everywhere. But I think through everything we can piece together, because we've been waiting for this movie over a year and a half at this point.
Or 35 years.
Or 35 years. We think that it's Egon's farm. We think that these kids are his grandkids.
Yes.
We think that their mom and Paul Rudd's character will be the new possessed.
The gatekeeper,
keymaster. You had heard some weird theories about Winston coming. Winston's the mayor of the town?
No, Winston runs like the corporate Ghostbusters. They're a chain now.
Yeah, Ghostbusters is not corporate, like a chain. So
around the country, like Roto-Rooter, and he's like, which was always Aykroyd's vision for it.
Which I do hope at the end of the day they give Winston more of a role.
You are the biggest.
I am the biggest Winston fan.
There better be some good stuff for
I just feel like the more I love Ghostbusters, and when we started dating, he kind of like reignited my love for it. I am so tired of him not being included on like the front box covers, the credits, he was the half of them would be dead without him, and I'm gonna say it right here on the show.
You do know who that part was written for?
Eddie Murphy.
Yeah.
And I remember he was quoted as saying, what did he say about it? About like something about.
He said, if it's between having my own movie or running around pretending to be scared of ghosts with a bunch of honkies,
that's right.
I want my own movie.
Fair point, Eddie. You are one of the people that ever
But hey, I'll say this: if you go by canon, Winston is supposed to be a badass, like former Marine. Like they've now done that in the comics that they put out. But I wouldn't buy Eddie as a Marine. You buy Ernie Hudson as a Marine. He's a big dude.
Especially if you happen to have seen the HBO prison drama Oz.
Right?
Where Ernie Hudson plays the warden and is a badass dude.
And he's just the best sport about any of it. He shows up to everything.
He goes to all the Comic-Con.
I mean,
he's the one that's going to the special screenings.
He'll do a cameo, as Winston said more.
Yeah.
If it's your birthday, I'll believe anything you want.
He was just such a great.
Oh, here's what I was going to ask you, Joe. You're a writer. You're a columnist. You know story. You know narrative. The Winston corporate deal was that through Survivor's Guilt, he's now with Janine.
That was the rumor.
Yes.
Yeah, which I don't believe that. That's such a stretch.
You think it's too far?
I don't think Ivan Reitman or
Aykroyd?
Jason Reitman.
The little boy. Yeah.
Yeah, that's his son.
They respect the original story.
So you don't think they?
Well,
I think that Janine was such a sentimental person.
What do you think?
Oh, go ahead. I'm so sorry.
I just think she was such a sentimental person, and they had such like a genuine.
I love it.
The thing with Egon and her, I don't see her like just moving on to one of his fucking friends.
What a heartbeat.
One of your friends?
Nobody's gonna dog Egon like that. Come on.
I think it's going to be full of fan service, which, like I said before,
you think Bateman has a talk show?
The thing that really twisted, I don't even know if you've seen it yet, but I saw on Jason Reitman's Instagram, in the original Ghostbusters, when Ray is working on the car and he's leaning in when Dana walks in for the first time, he's leaning over on this like mover's blanket. Like he had draped a blanket over.
So, yeah. Okay.
In the new, and I didn't catch it the first time until I saw this, in the new movie coming out, Finn Wolfhard's character is working on the car in the garage. Same blanket is draped over.
Nice. That is a good
It's
touch.
all like stained up, and years have gone by, but just those little touches make me feel like it's not going to be this outrageous story that we have to kind of be sold into. I think it's like, hey, y'all are back. Like, look what we've been up to.
That's where your prop master earned their salary for the film. They walked up one day and they're like, hang on a second.
I mean, Jason Reitman is the guy. He was the 11-year-old that said, "But that's so you guys are full of shit."
Yeah.
That'd fun.
Yeah.
I was a little disappointed in the Paul Feig movie because it's not good. And I expected better from the actors and Paul Feig, but
I have one complaint. It wasn't good.
Joe, that's the thing about looking the way you and I look and criticizing that movie. A few little things, just if they had been related to the Ghostbusters, the way it was set up. If it was Ghostbusters daughters, I would have been whole hog. Let's go.
Mm-hmm. For them to say that Leslie Jones' character was related
to Winston,
so
Ernie Hudson,
but Ernie Hudson wasn't Winston, and none of the other Ghostbusters were either.
Yeah,
it was just
you're shaming it like you're trolling us.
I can't believe we're having a rant.
We're losing our right to vote, and this is what we're focused on.
We need to escape how bad the situation in Texas is with pop culture from the 80s. But we do. Listen, the one thing that I've really learned being a Texas Democrat is that you have to find a way to fucking survive mentally in this state. And you need to find things that you can laugh at. And I think we're coming out of such a difficult year and a half with COVID that any opportunity you have to like connect with friends about Ghostbusters, talk about politics, talk about the Cubs, we really need to reach out to folks and just reconnect with them, reconnect with ourselves. We'll all be a lot better off if we find a way to laugh during what is a very confusing time in Texas.
Man.
I'll tell you what, I'm writing in Joe Bowen for governor. I'm sorry.
I jokingly told people in 2017 that if we didn't get a good candidate for attorney general, that I would run for attorney general, because in the great state of Texas, you don't need to be an attorney to do that. And my slogan was going to be going for Bowen. At least he's not indicted.
Hey, I'm with you, and you couldn't have a better campaign manager than a dude that was raised by Austin trial attorneys like Mowgli was by the Tigers.
Actually, Mowgli was raised by the wolf pack. The tiger was actually the villain of the story.
I'm sorry. I was watching Perry Mason with my father. I didn't see a lot of Jungle Book.
The second Perry Mason reference that I've heard in the last like 3 hours, by the way.
There you go.
And third one, Perry Mason was nominated for an Emmy today.
Oh,
No, good for them.
Oh no.
I haven't watched the revival yet. I'll give it a shot at some point.
I've heard.
What I'm in the game to be young Matlock. That's what I'm really shooting for. I wore a cream-colored suit to my friend's wedding recently.
Young Matlock.
I was wearing the cream suit. I was like, they really need this energy. I bring a rugged handsomeness that I think fits well with Andy Griffith.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm just saying. I think that me as young Matlock.
You're going to do young Matlock. We're going to do a crossover. I'm going to do young Columbo.
Boom. I also talked to someone about Columbo earlier today.
One more thing.
If you can throw your voice and do the squint, you're good.
You're what? You're going to be young Cody. No one knows the shows we're talking about now.
People know. We know them all.
People know.
You're gonna.
Not only do I know the original Columbo, I was there for the fucking Ving Rhames revival, everybody. Like,
I had totally forgotten about that.
Are you kidding? Oh my God.
Joe, I'm so sorry that I was in your head.
deep.
No wonder he wants to be Matlock instead of.
Yeah,
I've
Matlock.
forgotten all about that.
I'm racking up.
Vin Diesel, haven't you done enough?
Well, that's kind of what they do with the Equalizer.
Oh no, I'm here for Queen Latifah being the equalizer.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I'm very confused by it. I just want to be honest. I think Queen Latifah could be anything that she wants to be, including a very good black operative, as in the CIA, not the color of her skin, just to clarify. She'd be very good in the CIA. I don't think she'd be that good. Where it's like, I'm going to set a timer and kill everyone in the room before this timer goes off. That's hard to do. And I just think she has such like, we're going to have a good time. We're going to play some music. She has Queen Latifah energy. It doesn't.
You do a few seasons of what's it called, Another Place or whatever. And no one respects you again.
You're like Chris the Alley all of a sudden.
Now watch, I just said this and somehow randomly someone who works on the show sends the clip to Queen Latifah. And I'm walking out of a record store in Houston and suddenly someone just starts throwing crazy head kicks at me. And I'm like, what's going on? And then I get my wits and realize Queen Latifah came to equalize me and it's over. And then I have to apologize because once Queen Latifah punks you on the street like that, you're not coming back from it.
I have to say,
you work for Queen Latifah at that point. You're doing whatever she wants.
I think so. I usually just tell people that just to be safe, just when I meet people. But I have to say right now, this might be the best show we've ever had.
This was a very.
This might be the best show we've ever had with Joe Bowen for the.
Thank you. I very much appreciate that. I had a lot of fun with you.
I thought we was like, you know what? Texas was falling apart. This is what we're gonna focus on the whole time.
Cry.
And the fact that we got to talk about Ghostbusters, Queen Latifah,
and me repping Queen Latifah.
For Winston,
Justice for Zedmore.
I know when I got on the Zoom initially, Tara was kind of like, "Fuck, another white guy in Texas with a deep voice."
Cool.
She's like, "Oh, his hat's turned forward. Okay, I'll buy it."
They're different. Yes. One is not like the other.
No, one is not like the other because Joe knows policy, just smart. I just know how to.
I did not ever claim to know policy. I know how to talk about policy. I'm a campaign dude. I'm a policy comms guy. If you want someone to figure out how we should respond to a public crisis, I'm not it. if you want someone to talk about it.
That's where I feel, but this means we're only setting up a sequel to this show.
Yes.
Which I'm always.
I'll come back anytime. I'm a weirdo and I'm always home.
That's our demographic.
I mean, that's the only other person who made that joke. Mark McKinnon was the only person.
Right.
Mark, we should hang out, man.
He's
got a cowboy hat. I've got a ball cap.
Be Heileman to me.
Oh my God, we should do.
I've got a ball cap.
Like, is that you?
I also think one of his daughters went to high school with a friend of mine. So, like, who knows?
We're in. We should do it. We should do like a mini circus episode.
Yeah, we're gonna eventually.
We should. I've got friends who will supply the beers.
There you go.
Texas Beer Company, Taylor, Texas. Let's do it.
JD Gins.
Yeah.
Hell of a beer brewer, if I do say so myself.
He'd also be a hell of a guest.
He would be. And I have to say this, do not sleep on the future news about young Matlock, because if I have anything to do with it, this is going to happen.
Listen, Thursdays this fall, NBC Young Matlock. I'm out here.
Hey, they're doing Young Walker. I saw Young Walker today.
They've done Hawaii, Young Hawaii 5-0. They've done Young Miami Vice. Magnum. Young
Mexican
Matlock. Yeah.
They have
done it all.
So now it's time for Young Matlock.
No, we had a Young Matlock.
So they did Young Matlock? No,
yeah.
I don't think.
Now we just need to take it to the place where Sam and I contact someone and get access to one of the courtrooms in Travis County, and he'll be on the stand and I'll be young Matlock, and we'll shoot a little screen test.
Yeah, we're gonna shoot a demo.
This is the start of something beautiful.
Yeah, I know for a fact they have not done young Matlock because no one would have had the balls to have done that. We're gonna sit here until she looks this up because I know for a fact Joe would know if they had. That's kind of artist.
MacGyver. It was MacGyver. Yeah. I'm so sorry. It was young MacGyver.
And it's canceled already. Young MacGyver.
I'm really confused by that because MacGyver wasn't that old. He was like a 30-year-old dude.
Right. They did like 20-something MacGyver.
You also can't be a secret agent when you're like 6.
22,
like how young was young MacGyver? Like,
right. And they did young Sheldon.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I want to do? Also, after we make a huge hit with young Matlock, I want to play. We're gonna flip it. You produce all young Lou Grant from Mary Jane.
It's a choice. You can rock that.
All right. It's gonna be a hard sell to the network. We'll take it to CW.
Oh, they're gonna sex it up.
Is the CW still out there?
Sexy young Lou Grant.
All right, they have like Riverdale. Yeah,
that's what they do.
I'm so old. I remember when the WB changed, and my brother was like, "What happened to the WB? I really want to watch Smallville." And I was like, "It's the CW now."
Like, no,
I
too sexy
still
now.
slip up and say WB. I'm like, it's the show.
Well,
Bring it back with the frog in the logo.
The frog is hello.
The frog is dead. What is the show that the only show we watch on? It's not Lois and Clark.
Superman and Lois.
That's right.
It's the Superman show. It's really good. I like it.
That's right.
Didn't they make that show in the 90s with Dean Cain?
Well,
that would be
Lois
Adventures of Lois.
No, that was like Lois and Clark. Yeah.
So this is Superman and Lois, and Superman's a dork dad of teenage boys. What? So he like assistant coaches football, and his kids get in trouble. That's like the whole story.
They have 2 teenage twin sons.
They move back to Smallville,
and they find out that one of them has powers, and so this whole first season is about like how.
Apparently, it's about Superman being a dilf. I don't know, Joe. We've lost our audience now.
I just feel like if you're Lois Lane and you go through the trouble of surviving sex with Superman to have a baby, and then one day the kid melts the vase with his eyes or something, you can't get upset at that. That's like getting upset when your kid has black hair. It's like, oh, you gave our child your hair color.
Right, yeah.
It's like if our baby has red hair, I'll just...
Do you have any idea how damaging an allergy to kryptonite can be to a child?
It will.
Yes,
guys, my Lord. Check out the Texas Standard. Not the Texas Standard. That's not
Texas Signal. You can also check out the Texas Standard if you want to.
Texas Signal.
Yeah. It's all
Joe
good.
Bowen,
Now,
Texas
this is
signal.
what happens when you laugh. You release a lot of pheromones. You get a little lightheaded. That's why people enjoy going to comedy clubs. But please check out Texas Signal. We're a progressive media company fighting the Republican lie machine here in Texas. Sam reads us every day. We do happen to have similar colors to the Texas Standard, which is also a great journalistic endeavor you should check out.
I don't know if I'm being like eclipsed by the
I don't
sun
know
over
what's
here.
going
I'm
on, but I
so
think we-
sorry.
I just was like, did the tripod, the lights on, start to drift?
No, it's
Like,
all fine. I don't know what's going on.
I think I'm just being phased out.
Yeah.
Bye, everybody.
I didn't want to tell you guys, J.J. Abrams is directing this episode.
we need more flare.
So,
The flare is not blue enough.
Joe Bowen.
No,
What
no.
maybe the funniest show I can remember. We've had some fucking awesome guests lately. I don't want to talk about him in front of him.
Please tag Mark Normand and tell him I was a more fun guest and challenge him to come back on the show.
I will get me and you and Mark Norman on together.
Let's do it.
I know. I think we're building up enough to have these like multiple
all-star
guest
games?
shows. Yeah.
Yeah.
People have been saying like, bring me back, and I want to
Ty
talk to
Barnett's
so-and-so
coming
and so-and-so.
back. Mark McKinnon's coming back. Rich Johnson's coming back.
Yes, and we would love to see all y'all
We'd
join
love
us
to see Joe
too.
back.
We're gonna link Texas Signal into our description tonight.
Everything.
You guys need to check it out. It's not just articles.
They're
We got
fighting the fight,
podcasts,
man.
we
They're.
got-
What did we say earlier about how the media is not really reporting these fights in Texas accurately? They're like, oh, Democrats got their fewies hurt and they
Yeah.
walked away. Where Texas Signal goes, no, dude, this is the only option they had. They're fighting for your right to vote.
Mhm.
You're not going to get any of that, just the talking head crap.
Yeah.
You will occasionally get me talking some real hot shit about Republicans on Twitter, though. So please
That's
tune
okay.
into the Twitter feed.
That's okay.
That's
Tara is being eclipsed right now, which means that's the end of the show. Joe, thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for having me, Al.
Thanks for coming on. But hey, I'll text it because when we end this, it will cut off. But oh my God, what a great guest!
Yes. Thank you so
Thank
much
you for having me.
coming on. You were such a good sport, and just it's so much more
My pleasure.
fun when people can laugh and have a good time. And
Folks, support your local Texas Democrat. Whether you're Republican or Democrat, it matters now more than ever.
that's right. All right. Goodbye, everybody. It was a great one. See y'all next time.